We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Deborah Herman. She is an author, she is a publisher, but we're going to be talking about her new book at the present moment that is literally hot off the press. We're going to be talking about automatic writing and everything to do along with it. But she says spiritual writing from inspiration to publication. We're going to be talking about that book. As I said, hot off the press. We're going to be talking about automatic writing. What does it actually mean? Deborah says, who's a best-selling author, publisher, former literary agent, intuitive writing coach, and with the second edition of Spiritual Writing from Inspiration to Publication, which has just been released. And we're going to be talking about the spiritual writer's path, along with other topics, including animal communication, energy drawings, neuro drawings, and energy balancing, bringing balance into the chakras. We have a lot here to talk about. She believes that when we are all here to raise our vibration, here within ourselves and with others around us. And that's why we need to guide and encourage spiritual writers to answer their call while teaching them about the craft of writing and how to navigate that path to publishing. And we're going to be talking about the rapid changing world. Spiritual writers often hear a calling stronger than ever before. And right now, we need those spiritual writers out there in the world because the spiritual writers are feeling something that is a message that we all need to hear. And that message at the present moment is about raising our vibration, raising up our frequency into more of a love vibration, and also that higher consciousness that we all need to step into, I think, at the present moment. So we all have an ability inside of us, don't we, Deborah, that when we become present with ourselves is revealed. Every single one of us carries a gift, but it is that gift of understanding what it is our gift. And sometimes we stumble across it. Sometimes it's been nagging at us for years and we just weren't paying attention. For you, in your case, obviously, writing and books, and obviously with the publishing and the automatic writing and the spirit that comes from within, was it something that knocked on your door as a child, or is it something that you came across as an adult? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I think it began in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was born with some understanding, whatever the concept might be, and I laugh about it in the book. I always knew there was God, my
Mm-hmm.
concept of God, but I had to admit that seeing the Ten Commandments move me. I kind of like the burning bush, and I liked thinking that Charlton Heston was Moses, and so I was influenced by pop culture.
Uh-huh.
But I always had a sense of a world beyond, and had snippets of experiences as a child, but never anything, um, you know, well, because I had a tough act to follow. My mother was very clairvoyant,
Mm-hmm.
and at an early age, my mother had a very amazing story that she told me about how she was in an awful boating accident in camp, and how her friend was killed.
Mm.
She was in the water, and instead of being pulled toward this boating propeller, she
Mm.
felt being pushed backwards.
Wow.
That's good. That story is going to stick with you, because then
Mm-hmm.
she told me that as she was sitting in the back of a car wrapped in a blanket, she saw a kind woman's face, clear as could be, didn't recognize her, but felt peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that when she described the woman to her aunts and her mother, they all began to cry, because it was the spitting image of their mother, who had died 2 weeks before my mother was born.
So she
So
was
I
there
had
to
that
keep her alive.
story.
Yeah, all right. Yes, and it can be intimidating for a child, as you said, a tough act to follow. But no, really, what it
I
was an
didn't think I had
invitation.
the gifts.
Well, yeah, my mother was very fey, as well, and but I've always been that way. I was born this way. Um,
Right.
but what I found for me was a question of it was a tough act to reveal,
Well,
to
yeah,
live in that
because
spiritual world because we're still in such a linear, three-dimensional thinking world that they look at anything like that as cultish or
oh
woo-woo.
well, I
Yeah.
almost well with me, I was in law school,
Hmm.
and at that time I started to have really major experiences, and I connected with a woman who was very not, I wouldn't say she was, I consider myself a mystic, not a psychic,
Hmm.
because I don't think my gifts are psychic gifts, and it's a difficult delineation,
Yeah,
but
I mean they're all under one umbrella, but they're just kind of different chords of the
yes,
music, right? Yeah.
because I can't say I have, there are some very powerful clairvoyants who
Hmm.
see
Hmm.
and they tune into the Akashic records, or
Hmm.
I am just an open vessel, and it came all at once, and it was a bit of a spiritual emergency, quite
So
frankly.
you're a channeler.
Connect. I
Hmm.
would say I've been called many things. I've been
Hmm.
called a psychopomp, or psych,
Hmm.
which, because I often have guided people who have passed over.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I'll give, I'll have experiences of, I was with a friend's mother when she was no longer able to speak and she was making the transition, but I was able to tune into her
Yes.
and convey her last thoughts.
Yeah, I relate to
Um,
that. Yeah.
I've been called an intuitive, I've been called a healer, but I just like with anything, the gifts don't come from me.
They come through
So
you.
yes, so
Yeah.
whatever's needed at the time, it's
Yes.
like, oh, okay, well, thank you, universe, for allowing me to give that to someone.
You're a
But
knowingness channeler with like, opening up for the soul message to resonate with the heart, to put the spirit into action, for the mind to know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And
exactly,
right, so that's a knowingness. And so a knowingness channeler is that it's not your knowledge. It's
yes,
opening up to the divine knowledge that
and
comes through you, and then it resonates with your own intellect to know how to use it.
exactly,
Hmm.
and corollary to the writing process, God needs an editor. Okay,
I love
because
that.
right, isn't that a good one? I thought you'd like that,
Yes, I do.
because sometimes, because I've been in publishing for many, many years, known as someone in the spiritual
Hmm.
genre, so to speak, because I had to do something. The agents that I knew at the time had no idea what to do with all this material of people who are just called to write their amazing spiritual awakenings, and
Yeah,
they called it woo woo,
yeah, of
you
course.
know, right?
Cultish,
And
everything else. I mean, anything that they don't understand has to have a bad stigma to it. Yeah.
yeah, and so I began working in this area back then to give language and to allow people to find each other and to get past the labels,
Yes.
because I mean, the seven lessons came out of all of that,
Right.
and they really are a way of quantifying what we as people on, and we're all on spiritual paths.
We're
Some
spiritual beings having a human existence. Yeah.
exactly,
Hmm.
but some people I really believe, and this is just my, what I think is trying to make sense of this cosmic arena we're in, is that some people may have chosen to come back,
Hmm.
because we need a lot of people to help with raising the vibration at this
Hmm.
time. But it doesn't matter. Let's say you're on the other side, you're from a higher plane of existence. You say, okay, universe, I'm going to go and incarnate on this classroom planet. You don't go back as a fully awake and
No,
aware.
no.
You go back into the human experience
Hmm.
and have to go through these initiations again
To ignite the
to
spirit.
and to make sure that you bring a pure energy, because this planet is so tempting to
Yeah,
forget why we're here
yeah,
and to
yes.
get caught up in the glitz and the glamour and the ambition and the achievement. And that's why I caution everyone, and really hope that people get it, that the focal point and crux of my work and of this book is this set of initiations, so that when we are bringing energy in, that we are getting out of the way and
Yeah,
allowing it to be from source.
yes. That is actually the only way to truly understand how to use it. Because if we're just stuck in our heads in that, in the knowledge database, in the head intellect, we can talk ourselves constantly like a hamster on a wheel. Yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, we should do this. No, we shouldn't. We're in our heads, but we don't have to understand the heart and soul and spirit has its own intellect. And only when they're ignited together and we channel down that wisdom, again, do we actually understand which knowledge is relevant in the now and how to use it. You know, I think Tesla is wonderful. Nikola Tesla is a wonderful example of that. He had enough intellect, mental intellect, to understand the gift that he was given and how to use it and experiment with it. And, you know, initially for energy, but then he understood how that energy could be used for healing. And that willingness to step out of the ego and allow that wisdom to come through and guide his knowledge into exploration is why we have so many innovations here today.
I also love one of the igniting books that I read early in my adult conscious awakening. Oh, I never finished the story about the law school. When I finished law school and I went through this like major awakening where the chakras just like pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on? And I couldn't stay in that path, although
Yeah.
I'm returning to it now in a very different, but rewarding way,
Mhm.
which I can mention later. But I received so much negativity
Mm.
from my colleagues who said, what are you doing? You know, you're a lawyer. Why are you talking about God and spirituality? But, you know, some people said, she's been really igniting people's spirit and this is her path.
Yeah.
But so that part was awesome because I was realizing there are people like me,
Yes.
and I couldn't, once I realized that I was on a path and that I was being led somewhere, I said, okay, so okay, universe. So I had to go through that training, which I've used in so many ways.
Exactly. It wasn't for that purpose, but the training was for
Exactly.
a different avenue. Yeah.
But there was tremendous blowback,
Mm.
because people don't understand
Mm-mm.
why you would listen to this inner voice. And, you know, that's another thing I want to encourage. Everyone
Yes.
has a divine inner voice,
Mhm.
but we don't always trust it.
No,
And
because we let the exterior voices naysay
yes,
it, right? You, it's the devil speaking. No, the hell and heaven are our experiences here on earth, and they could be utter hell or they could be pure heaven. It's a question of what kind of experience and how we look at it and what we gain from it. Um, but let's face it, that many of the religions and a lot of the commonalities and the foundation of the religions are all in the same. They're based in love from a divine source. All right, all the ability of that love and that wisdom coming through as guiding us on our own instrument, how to play it and which orchestra to play it in. But it got humanized and became weaponized in a form of control. And if you do not follow my letter of God, you will go to hell and damnation. And it governed people
Jewish
through
people don't
fear.
believe in hell.
No, nobody with common sense doesn't. You know, it's
I'm just saying, I was fortunate in that regard because I'm of a culture,
Mhm.
that questions we question everything.
Yes,
Although in Judaism, I'm an everything, of course.
right.
I'm a mystic, and I look for the love and the faith in any
Yeah.
wherever it is.
Hmm.
But I also am part of a very strong culture that I love. But the fortunate thing about it, although when I told that story about my mother at Hebrew school, I learned quickly you don't tell those kinds of stories to people because I thought, oh, this is Hebrew school. This Hebrew teacher is gonna love that I'm talking about
Mm.
spirit and God and my mother being saved from death. And no, it was terrible. And that kind of shut me down as
Yes.
well, of not telling people about my early spiritual experiences. I don't think that's an uncommon experience,
No.
but even in my tradition, there's there's the black letter law,
Uh-huh.
which is what they call halacha, which is the law. And then there's supposed to be the spirit of the law and the spirit of the experience and the mystical aspects. And so many, as you're saying, we speak, you and I we're on a very good wavelength. I love it. Uh, we we both see that what's happened is there's this intellectual separation
Hmm.
from the heart in all
Yeah.
of these traditions. And it's going to be a big joke when we all get to the other side and see that we're all the same energy
Yeah.
and we're from the same source. And everybody
Yeah.
says, wait, what? I
Why
thought,
did it take me so long to get here? Yeah. Yeah.
and why did I not understand and see the commonality of all
Mm.
beings, and how much more love that would bring into our world if people understood that, and moved beyond these false
Illusions.
separations.
Yeah, we are all made up of the particles of the universe, and our God essence is made up of that, and we're made up of that. So we're all made up of God essence. So therefore, God is always within us, whether you call it God, source, energy, whatever you wish to call it. We're made up of that, and that essence to be um, a beautiful being, having this human experience, so therefore becoming a human being, living in light and love and compassion and kindness and wisdom is who we're meant to be as a human race. That was the evolution that we were meant to take, the spirit awakening up our heart, igniting our spirit, allowing that divine wisdom to come through and speak to us, guiding us on this path to make this human journey a really one of extreme wonderment and exploration and creation. But what happened is that suppression came in the form of control, of religion, of governments, of hierarchy, and it kept everybody herded together in the denial. Or you can only worship God this way and not that way. And what do you mean God is within you? That's heresy, all of that. And we forgot to ignite our heart and souls. And that's what
What's
we've been
worse,
invited to do.
but what's worse is not it's not just looking at other people and saying, you have it wrong. It's and again, this is one of the lessons, the tolerance lesson. It's wanting them to believe as you believe. And
Right,
I think that's the greater danger, is to not just say, well, I've got it right. It's that you've got it wrong, and it's my job to make you understand what's right.
right.
And
On both
and
sides of the coin, right? Whether it's
very
the spirit
that's
or
the
the
danger.
or the other. Yeah. And the thing is, it's don't do, but be. Be
Yeah.
the essence of light, be the essence of love. The reflection of who you are in that divine energy is the resonance that will either awaken or illuminate or inspire others. It is not for you to tell them to become, but to be inspirational in an invitational way that they wish to open up and become themselves.
Absolutely. Another part of my tradition that I learned that I thought was very interesting is, people, and again, it's just because it's my culture.
Yeah.
But people will also often say, well, why do Jewish people not evangelize and
Mm-hmm.
invite people to become Jewish? It's not, it's it's because we have this philosophy that, for example, we want our glass of wine to overflow.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants what's spilling over,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine, but we don't go and put the wine in other people's glasses.
Right.
It's they and so that was kind of my foundation. But that's, again, I had a lot of experiences that brought me beyond into other traditions and into other study. I actually was going to mention, I love the work. Are you familiar with Dr. Brew Joy?
No.
He wrote Joy's Way, and it was one of the first books I read, that had to do with energy healing.
Mm-hmm.
He was a medical doctor, who discovered this energy in his hands that he was able to use for physical healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real classic, wonderful, esoteric book. I don't know if it's still available, but that was one of the first books I read that changed my perspective of healing and energy and how we are. So I just thought I would share that. That's
Yeah. I
a
suppose
really good book.
I think for me, being that spiritual being, being a seer, and being that knowingness person, I would say something to my teachers. How did you know that? Can you say it again? No. And I don't know how I know it. It wasn't for me to
Exactly.
know what I've just told you. It's because you needed to hear it at the moment. And it's out of my hands. I'm just the messenger, right? And way beyond my years that I'm giving wisdom to someone that I didn't comprehend. I didn't have the intellect to comprehend, but it was just the message they needed at that time. And I have found myself throughout my life in places, in situations, around people that just needed to know a message at that time. And but it was very difficult for me to actually understand what really was happening to me because I was never afraid of it. I literally played with dead spirits. I grew up with living in other dimensions, a very sickly child. So in this world, I was kept very much in bed all the time in a big white room. So I had to go elsewhere, in the dimensional world in order to survive. But it was for me, why don't other people see what I'm seeing?
Even
Why
in
don't
even in, you were in England,
I was brought up in England, had the first 14 years in England, yes.
because I uh, perhaps I'm wrong, but I thought the culture is a little more accepting of the spirit world.
Well, my mother is very fey, but even it was always that you've got to be careful what you tell other people because of other people's ignorance, right? But I still didn't quite understand.
That must
Um,
have been frightening.
well, it was just more confusing. And the thing
Yeah.
is, my spirit was constantly working, right? And it's like, how do I suppress this? And, this is obviously what I'm meant to here to do. Uh, and that free spirit and that just raised energies around me, and it was but other people not comprehend it, people drawn to it, and then other people wanting to capsulate it and control it. And of course, when you do that, it just starts, dying. That energy dies when you try and control it. But it was just for me as a child growing up, I would have people drawn to me, your kids at school, etc. And then once I was able to say something, then pull away from me because then they were scared of me. So I didn't quite understand what was happening. I didn't know this difference between spirit and a human existence. I just was Sarah doing what Sarah does. And it was, I just didn't understand. But it really did it was a lonely life because I was in a world that not many people understood or could relate to. So it was a lot of sadness. I've just written my memoir, and in reading it back, and I realized how much sadness and loneliness has been there in my life because of it. But we're not in that world anymore. We're in a world where we can ignite our heart and souls now, where people are stepping into the spirit or are understanding that essence, understanding the importance of being in that essence and what it means to us as a human race and what it means to this planet and our existence in the universe. So now I can be free to speak about it. And if somebody wants to consider me a freak, that's their issue, not mine.
No, I like it. I like, to be honest, I wrote this book 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do a lot of my spiritual work long ago. I had
Mm-hmm.
a group that I had a circle, and then I went into other directions and I've written other books and I went into agenting and I went, I've written 13 books,
Wow.
but this was always my heart and soul. And something just told me it was time. And because it was ahead of its time back when
Yes,
I first wrote it.
that's right. That's
And
the reason why I never wrote mine. It's just
yes,
too
and
far out there.
I have exactly. And something had I had all of these things on my plate. And one by one, they were leaving my plate or I was sending them
Mm,
some off my plate. And it occurred to me that it's time now where I am, if you get a chance to, I'm sure you can't read everything people send you, but if you get a chance to really read this,
mhm.
I was far more vulnerable and honest in this version of the book about what I even say. I'm coming out. These are my gifts.
Yes.
This is me, and this is why. And it, and I want to help people like us
Hmm.
who, first of all, you were dropped into the right family, because if we didn't have challenges early in
Hmm.
life, we
Yes.
would be too comfortable to have to go through these initiations to
Hmm.
become the healers and the seers,
Yeah.
and to take that path,
Hmm.
because it's comfortable. If we had
It won't
perfect
stretch. You won't
environments,
explore, right? All of these
we would have
challenges
no
make us explore.
motivation.
Exactly. Hmm.
Somebody once told me that you have to have some anxiety just to write a book, because
I
why
can
do
I
it?
can attest to that.
You
Absolutely.
know, exactly. You've got to have some kind of drive,
Yeah.
or something you need to do, and something to motivate you. But it's time now, and there are a lot of people who are going to be discouraged by the publishing industry and the way
Hmm.
that it is. But as I say in the book, um, there has never been greater opportunity, if you do it the right way, to find your particular audience.
Yes.
And not everybody needs a massive audience. We don't
No.
all need to be, best selling and number one, because our messages may be only for a certain audience. But
But
what we
they
need,
ripple out though. That's the thing. When
but
somebody receives that message and it gives them permission to ignite their own heart and soul and spread their
yes.
own essence, ripple, 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 ripple. I rather have that beautiful, deep ripple effect happening slowly and more encompassing than kind of going up for the ivory tower number one and then dropping back down and becoming
Well,
forgotten.
because I've been working with authors for over 25 years,
Hmm.
as an agent, curating, working, developing projects, and then of course my own. And people become discouraged
Hmm.
because they don't understand that they only need to live their purpose, and they don't know who's going to be influenced by it. They don't know
Right.
what the ripple effect is going to be. So the first step is to just be very clear with your purpose, your message, your mission, and then look to the next steps of how to become professional, and how to get your work out there and that kind of thing.
You're writing it, as you said, it was time. And, I've had people now ask me for a number of years, Sarah, where's your book? Where's your book? And it was like, okay, I'm writing this now for the people who have asked me for that book because they've heard snippets of my story through 10 and a half years of podcasting, but not the whole story. And initially I was going to audio it and then transcribe it. And instead, I just took 3 weeks out in August, said to family, I'm doing this, not seeing anyone. I didn't do any shows. I just went in and I let the fingers do the typing, and I just let the story be told. And then my brother, who is a professional author, he said, I want to edit it. And that scared me because actually he's quite a spiritual writer, but not a spiritual practicer. Right. So he's a literary master's level teacher. So, but it's interesting. And he got halfway through, unfortunately, had a heart attack, so wasn't able to finish it for me, unfortunately. But I was expecting him to, no, you can't say this, or no, you can't say that. And I said, no, you need to say more here, or you need to do more there, which was surprising for me to see that. But I looked around at a whole load of publishers if I wanted to go that way. And I said, look, when it comes to the editing, it has got to be with somebody who understands what I'm saying, understands the rhythm that I'm saying, that doesn't want to change a sentence into one word because it's more convenient. That sentence is there for a reason. Those many words are there for a reason. They're not there to be abbreviated or simplified, because it is about the rhythm of how I want you to read it, to understand the energy in which it's written. And it's very hard to find a publisher that is spiritually in tuned to what the author's energy is trying to say. Right? Oh, no, people can't read it that way. But it's not for that audience. It's for the people that are already energetically engaged or on the bridge of that and wanting to be engaged, that will actually understand it. And this is it. For you to be doing what you're doing is wonderfully unique, and also at the same time, exactly what an awful lot of the people I've interviewed needed in publishing their book, because all of the publishers just wanted to make it generic.
Yeah, but you have to understand the publishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
They answer to a bottom line threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was very fortunate. My last book, you want to talk from sublime to darkness, is I wrote this book, which is the memoir of the youngest member of the Manson family cult, which, it's not as dark as you would think. It's actually been reviewed. We have about over 1,000 5-star reviews
Wow.
from people who understand that it's really a spiritual book.
Yes.
Because the woman who is it's her story, she survived as a witness and testified against them. She was with them the whole time, but she survived to be able to explain how these cults happen.
Yes.
And she's a very spiritual person. She's a delight. She was like a flower child in a garden of weeds. But this book was major publisher, William Morrow, and even this book, we finally earned back our advance. It was my biggest book. And I've had all of my other books were not indie published. They were major publishers. But I learned that they have this threshold of how many books they need to print in the first print run. They're really owned by major conglomerates, and publishing is this much of this big media concern. So, to have them really understand what someone is trying to say, if it's not something that they see that's very like they used to call it practical spirituality, where it's going to be appealing to the masses, then they started to do a lot of books about yoga and about angels. And one year there were so many books about angels that, because that was a trend.
Right.
So if you can understand the business model of the major publishers, there are so many alternatives that spiritual writers, it doesn't mean you won't find the right publisher. There are spiritually oriented publishers, but there are steps you can take to prepare your product to be commercial enough. There are ways to find out who your audience is and how to reach them through things like search engine optimization and keyword research, and figuring out, where do my people hang out, and then making your book the best it can be. And you can find either you have to use discernment. That's one of the lessons, the 7 lessons. It's self-protection. But you can find smaller smaller publishing houses. You can I always hesitate to have people completely self-publish. You need a team of professionals to tell you how to position your book, how to market your book. Or you need a big learning curve, and you need to be open, just like as a spiritual being, you need to be open to what the universe tells you.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the publishing world, you need to be open to the protocols of how to make a book saleable.
Right.
But a spiritual writer only needs to reach their people and
Yes.
their tribe. So it's a difference.
And I think if you're writing a book to be #1 bestseller, who are you writing it for? It's if that's your aim, yeah, it is nice if it gets there. But I think you're writing the book to share your story, whatever the story is, in hopes that it will illuminate or ignite somebody who is reading it. And I think it's, ask your why. Why are you writing this book?
That's the first question that
Yeah.
I give to people when I give them a revision notebook is, before I even work with them or work with them to edit, or even if I'm looking for my publishing house, why are you writing this book? And as a spiritual writer, it's really important to me that their purpose is for a greater good than for themselves.
Exactly.
It's a big difference. If
Yeah.
it's just a regular nonfiction writer who wants to write a book on consulting and give people ways of being a better consultant, I don't care.
Right.
If you're going to write for people's souls and their elevation and their vibration, your words have power.
Exactly. Responsibility.
And so I will feel, using my intuition, if someone's ego is in the right place.
Yeah.
And they can never forget what's in it for the reader, because it's not it's not about you. This song is not about you.
Right.
It's even if you are the subject and it's your memoir,
is what are people going to get out of your story, right? It's your memoir, it's your life story, but how is it going to serve others?
Yes. And that's why memoir writing is another thing that I've often I now teach people, because when I did this Member of the Family, I had an amazing editor. I thought I knew how to write. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. I had always wanted to write creative nonfiction. That's what I did in my dual degree from law and journalism, was to learn this so-called new journalism, is what it was called back then, literary journalism. Never really got a chance to do it. Always did typical nonfiction, how to, or parenting, or things like that, or write books for writers. But this book, it was like, God, you put it in my lap on a silver platter every day. I only had a 90-day deadline. Do you believe it? For this, I know you write fast, but this is a book that is printed. It's 384 pages, and there were at least hundreds of books written about Charles Manson.
Right,
so
exactly.
So it was her story. I had to fill in all of the history, the timeline. I knew people were going to be looking at it, with under a magnifying glass.
Facts? Where are the facts?
Exactly. And am I incorrect? But every single day when I'd go into my writing room and I'd shut everybody out, I would say a prayer. And my usual prayer is, Almighty God and whoever and whatever spirits or beings you want to call in, may I be a vessel for the greater good, and please inspire me and let me write at my highest level. Well, with that book, it was, God, don't let me it up. That was my prayer
Yeah,
every
exactly,
day.
exactly. Because the responsibility, I mean, like, yeah,
Yes,
you know, the responsibility in everything you write, what impact is it going to have on someone, whether it's your memoir, whether it's a fictional story, or whether it's a factional story? You know, if you're telling about somebody else's life, you've got to
it
get
was
those facts
such
right,
it
right?
was such a sacred trust.
Exactly. And that representation of that story better have the right facts because you know people will fact check you. And but also at the same time honoring their voice
Their
of what
voice.
they went through.
Exactly. And we, because of our joint intuition, she's very intuitive. I would have dreams from her subconscious.
Mm,
It was getting weird. And it was such a journey over time. And the greatest compliment I got, because I didn't have, just so writers know, we are all self-conscious. We
mhm.
are all, we're all nervous. And most of us have to learn, one of the lessons is self-love. Most of us have to learn that.
Everybody
And
needs to learn self-love.
yeah,
That is the
and
actual key
stop
to living.
looking at what other people are doing and
Or,
accomplishing.
or
And
judging you or comparing. Yes, no comparison, please.
yes, the
Hmm.
greatest compliment was her sister wrote me a letter saying she could hear her sister in the
Ah,
book. And it was like, oh, because I worried and lost sleep, because I needed to fulfill that obligation
right.
and that sacred trust.
And it
So
is a sacred trust when you are telling somebody else's story. It's even a sacred trust if you're telling your own,
your own
because
story.
yeah, it's going to change the perception of how people see you.
Yes,
You know, that book is how they see her now and her story. If you're writing a memoir, it's how people see you. Are they seeing you in a light that you wish to be seen in? You know, or are you muddying your own waters, or are you being, too victimized, or did you come out with growth and solutions that benefit others? Is it an inspiration that begets the invitation? And there's always that responsibility that what the reader gets out of it. Do they resonate? Do they connect to that story? Is it something that sparks something inside of them? Has it inspired them? Has it revealed something in them? Has it enlightened them? I mean, that's what a book does.
I think the safest way to do all of that is to be authentic and
Yes.
to get rid of the inner critic, the inner
Hmm.
editor. And I find that when I'm editing someone's memoir that they've written,
Hmm.
there's always a point where it's getting close to the time to be finished or to publish it or whatever. They always say, oh, I've got to change that. I'll hurt this person's feelings. I'll
Right.
hurt this person's feelings. You are hanging it all out.
Yeah.
And it's, if you are, if you're going to do it, you shouldn't do it halfway. You need to
No.
be, I mean, of course, you don't want to libel someone or tell
Right.
untruths, but if you are telling a story, it's not fiction. It should
No.
be written as a novel.
Yeah.
You've got to use good, good pacing and have a through line. And I mean, the biggest thing with memoir is actually what you leave out, because there's so much detail that we get bogged down with.
Yes.
But you can't sanitize the way people want to sanitize if the meaning of their story is also some of the darker times,
Hmm.
or it ha or it's made, or it's nothing.
Well, I mean, the thing is, to reveal your light, you have to show the darkness that you've
Yes,
gone through. In my case, for the people that were a part of that darkness, I spoke of them, but didn't reveal who they are.
right.
But all those that have been my light and my inspiration have been mentioned by name, because I have chosen to celebrate the support they gave me on my life's journey. Um, and this is my perspective of my life, of as I've lived it, as my reactions have been to it. So this is my story, my perception. Somebody else may read it that knows me and say, but no, I see it from a different point of view. That's theirs. I have no ownership over that. I have no control over that. We have no control of how anyone's going to receive our work, book, song, blog, podcast. No, we don't have any control over that. All right. All we can be is authentic, honest, and open enough with our own story that we
And have
stand by
faith,
it. Yeah.
but have faith and
Yeah.
trust that if you're going to tell it at all, that and I wish everybody would write a memoir, even if they never publish it,
Yes.
because the insights that you gain
Mm.
from looking at things from a higher level
Oh,
and
yeah.
seeing things linearly, it's remarkable. You see how again, you know I keep going back to the 7 lessons because they're important to me and were developed over time. But if you look at them and then you look at your life and you look at how things play out, it all makes sense. And
Yeah.
it does all make sense. And the lessons you need to learn or the
Yes.
insights you need to gain as you mature
Hmm.
as a human and as a spiritual being, it's not random.
There's so much that you learn about yourself in doing this,
Yes,
that even the things that happen to you happened for you,
yes.
right? Or that you invited things happening to you because of your vibration or low self-esteem or negativity, and that we have to take ownership of things that have happened to us as well. Some of
Well,
it can
because
maybe out
that's
of our
going to
control,
lead.
and some of it we invited, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I would maybe frame it a little differently, but I agree with you. It's it's a vulnerability. So if you have the vulnerability, for example, I define spiritual self-love as whether or not you feel worthy. So
Mm,
you could love God, you could love people, love humanity, but if you don't feel worthy of that, even if nobody who knows you would ever think that, it's a spiritual vulnerability.
yeah.
So yes,
One
we
of the
could use the
greatest gifts you can give
language.
yourself.
Pardon?
Spiritual vulnerability is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself.
Yes, but I mean it's a Achilles heel.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Good vulnerability is wonderful.
Yeah.
Intimacy, love,
Mm,
yes. Yes, and openness to source. I mean, these are things that that
you lay
can
yourself
be,
open to?
yes,
Yeah,
and
okay.
can be exploited by people
Hmm.
who do not, or energies that do
Hmm.
not have your best interests at
Right.
heart. Okay,
Yes.
because the more enlightened beings who are not vulnerable in these areas, the higher the vibration.
Hmm.
And there are other, in my opinion, vibrations that would prefer to keep things out of balance.
Yeah. Um, I used to be a coach. I still have the program there, but I don't do it much anymore. But one of the things I used to do is take a ruler. This is the British in me, inches and feet, right? Not centimeters. And it would be the people that were kind of the 6 to 12 on that positive vibration. They were on the higher level. And you had the 4 and 5s that were in the discovery of that vibration and the transition of that vibrations. But you would have the 1 to 3 of the negatives of the lower vibration that are piranhas. And they'll go
Yes,
after the 4 and 5s to suck the
yes,
life out of them. And
yes.
then you would see, but they were doing so well. Why did they relapse or why did they go back into that? It's because they were in the wrong arena. And the other people who have chosen to be the piranhas, to live in that negativity, it's what they feed off.
But I would
Anybody
tell
that gets
you,
up to there, suck the life out of them.
and I would tell you that in this framework, that the 4s and 5s, or even the 6, 7s, and 8s, because none of us are completely without these
Right.
vulnerabilities, that the areas of that they're here, the lessons that they're here in this lifetime to learn, let's say it's self-love or self-protection, the 1s and 2s are going to exploit those.
Yes.
And that's how we, because we need to learn and be aware. Oh, I'm in that relationship. It's probably because I just have to, I don't feel worthy and I'm
Yeah,
allowing this person to walk all over me.
right.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So it's very, it's spiritual,
It's
but
the
it's human.
awakening, isn't it? You know, that 4 and
Yes.
5 is the awakening. Is like, why do I keep repeating this pattern?
Yes.
Right. Is this a pattern that was imposed upon me? Is it a pattern from a past lifetime or a DNA pattern? Is this a pattern I have chosen? Well, whatever the pattern is, I can look at it and go, no more. I am redrawing the pattern. But in order to do that, you've also got to move yourself away from the negative arena and put yourself amongst those higher energies to help you transition into that
Sure
plane
would
where
be
the others can't get
nice.
you. Yeah.
And it would be nice. And that's another reason we do what we do. And I
Mm.
write this kind of book is because we want people to see that there are higher energies and
Yeah.
there are people who are nice and aren't out to get you.
Right.
Because, for example, the self-protection, you can wind up not trusting anybody. And
That's no way
that's
to live.
also, that's not good
No.
because, you know, so we we can become fear-based,
Yeah.
and that's a lower vibration,
Very.
and the world right now is playing
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, and I think it's also what I call kind of resistance. People know at the core of themselves, whether they've acknowledged it or not, that change is in place and that frequencies are changing and that the energy is tilting more to this positive energy. But this positive energy doesn't have to scream and announce it. It's quiet and peaceful and harmonious. So those that don't want to change or are afraid of the change, or even too lazy to do the work for the change, are the ones that are protesting the most and being the loudest, right?
Kicking and
And
screaming.
kicking and screaming because we're in the Haglas Celtic room disruption right now. But out of the disruption comes the clarity. You've got to be willing to go through the storm to step into the calmness. And there are those that don't want to step into the storm without realizing they've created the storm. And that, if they choose just to choose the calmness and go through the process, they'll find the peace and the clarity they want. But have you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, MD?
No, but I was just contemplating your idea of calmness because I had a conversation with someone today about how almost alarming it is that I feel very calm. And I and I think because I've always been a got to do this, got to do this, got to do this.
Mm,
And now, and I don't know if you're feeling this as well, but when you are in the work you're supposed to be doing,
exactly.
I've never felt better. I
It's
feel,
peaceful, isn't it? It's harmonious. It's like
it's
everything's in
harmonious. I
sync.
feel
Yeah.
like, nothing's bothering me. I love life. I love doing it. I
Hmm.
love meeting people like you. And I feel so, so wonderful. And you're such a wonderful, wonderful person. I love
Thank
what
you.
you're doing. And promoting the book and doing my artwork. I don't think there's been, and the world, people tell me, oh, but the world, it's like, no,
No.
hang out in the calm zone,
Yes.
you
And
know?
that calm zone, the more that we do, the more that it quietly, calmly becomes that beautiful choir, gathering the
Yes.
voices. It will eventually outshine those negatives, right? But just to
Yes.
get to the book, The Four Cheese, Who Moved My Cheese, it was a metaphorical book written actually for business change, for people who didn't want to
So,
change in
oh,
business.
what is it called?
Is Who Moved My Cheese by
Oh,
Spencer Johnson,
I know,
MD.
I didn't
Right.
read, I know about it.
Right. So
No
it's two
offense, it
men
was
and
your accent.
yeah, it's two men and two mice around abundance of cheese, and one day the cheese is gone. All right. So, and it's the reaction over the cheese. Sniffy and Scurry go sniffing out and scurrying around for more cheese. Right. Hem and Ha, well, Ha is like, I don't know what to do. What do I do now? And it's only when Ha gets very, very hungry, realize, well, I got to get out there and look for it because it's not coming back. And but Hammers, give me back my cheese. Who do I have to sue? You better give me my cheese or else. And well, hey, mate, everybody else is gone. You know, the cheese is gone. And unless you get moving, you're going to be very, very hungry. And I think those are the people that are the protesters right now. They're wanting their cheese back. Well, The cheese is gone. You've got to go searching for more cheese, which means you've got to do some work.
Oh, that I just first of all, I think it's funny that I didn't understand what you were saying. And I thought this is wow, this sounds like is that like a new language? But that's such a wonderful description of this resistance to
Mm,
and this fear, because if you're
yes.
frightened, you're going to have a tantrum.
And there's going to be no clarity or understanding because you're
Exactly.
literally restricting
Yeah.
everything in your body, your psyche, your brain, your oxygen, your flow of energy. Everything is so tightened in restriction that the clarity and the harmony and the peace cannot run through you. We have to surrender. We
And
have to
we
take the
all
deep breath and surrender.
we need surrender. Absolutely. That's the seventh lesson is surrender. See, you know them already. And I and now that I'm hungry for cheese, but I happen to be allergic. I'm allergic to it.
Oh no. Try
I'm gonna
vegan.
go eat some vegan cheese.
Exactly. I was about to say that. Have vegan cheese. It's really good.
So, so
Got to
I
have a glass of wine with it though.
oh yes, yes, it's downstairs. It's a good way to end the day.
Yes.
But I'm glad to discover your work and your different videos and podcasts. I didn't know about you, and that's another reason I'm grateful that I've been, introducing my book to people. It opens it up for me to meet others like-minded.
Well, this is the thing. This is, we cover business, we cover spirituality, music, mental and physical wellness, veterans, even sensuality and spirituality on all very many levels. And people go, well, why so many different genres? The spirituality and the essence of our energy runs through every aspect of our lives.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
There isn't
Oh,
like, oh, it's a
yes.
spiritual channel now, a business channel. No, this week we have a beautiful show on conscious business, of bringing your consciousness to a higher energy and a higher plane in conducting your business. And this is
Oh,
the beauty of what I say.
I've got something amazing for the future.
Mm-hmm.
I was meeting this week with a colleague. We're starting a book imprint. She, as it's bringing me back full circle to my law training,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a movement throughout the world now called integrative law.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the effort. She just was in South Africa for 3 months teaching all over, and she's taught in Spain. And it's all about changing the practice of law into less adversarial, and using conscious contracts that are
Yes.
not full of jargon.
Yes.
It is so amazing. And we're launching in early 2023, and it'll be called Integrative Law
Well,
Press.
the two of you have to come back and talk about that because that is up
Yes.
my street completely. I did a wonderful a series a little while ago, a few years ago, called um, Let's Get Synced. And it was the synchronicity of our emotional climate around climate change. And I got to interview a lot of beautiful international people, ambassadors and people working with governments and corporations, all about bringing in that higher consciousness in every aspect of business,
Every aspect.
corporations, everything. And that the more you invest in people, planet, the more profit you're going to make. Right. And that there is an entire shift going on. Now, again, what we see in the news, the ugly, right?
Exactly.
We see
It's
that,
just fear-based.
exactly. And they're just still trying to keep people in that. And the last thing they want is people to actually own their own essence and energy and become part of that chorus. But it is absolutely wonderful. As I said, I've done 3,000 shows, and I would say that 99.5% of them have been along this level, even in religions, where people say, this is my religion, Christianity or Judaism or whatever, but it is about that essence of the energy of bringing
Yeah.
God in, of bringing love in. And it is
Yeah.
all about that love, because love is such a beautiful high frequency of literally a high frequent hertz that you can measure, that when we step up into that love vibration, we can't knowingly do harm to ourselves or anyone else. You certainly can't do
Exactly.
harm to anyone else because it will harm you. It will harm your
We don't want
consciousness.
to.
Right,
We don't need
exactly.
to be given rules because if
No,
we won't want to kill somebody.
exactly. So that higher consciousness is that plane of do no harm to others, for it will also harm
Exactly.
you. And if we could get people and allow people to be up in that plane, we wouldn't have so much hate, violent, and just disregard of humanity that is going on out there. Right? They will fall
And
by the
less
wayside.
littering.
Yeah, yeah, and less waste. It goes on and on and on.
I
But
know it makes so much
it
sense.
does. But the point is, everything is free will. And all we can do is inspire people to such
Yes,
a point that we invite them to want to open that door to this journey because it
yes.
is a process. And that process may be easy or it may be hard. That's up to you. It's up to your journey. But you've got to be willing to take the process, go through the process of it, of this beautiful steps into this extraordinary essence and gift of who you are from a place of love, of kindness, of caring, of compassion, and living on that vibration. And I can tell you, I've interviewed people who have stories that are horrific, that no human being should have gone through what they went through, but they chose not to be the victim, but to go through the healing process and stand in their light today and be that bright light for others who are going through the same thing.
Well, I really appreciate you
Thank
and
you.
all of. I will now be a fangirl and look through a lot of the body of work that you've
Oh
done.
my God. I mean, like yourself, there's so many extraordinary people who have, despite other people's opinions, have decided to honor your own heart and soul and spirit and step
Feel
into
so much
that.
better.
It's such a happier place to be.
It
It's so much
is.
less work,
It is. When
right?
when you just I am who I am.
And I'm enough. I'm not everybody's cup
Exactly.
of
I'm
tea and
enough.
somebody's cup of strong coffee or good scotch. It's just be who you are. You're not going to be for everyone. There's not one size fits all. All right. Some people are going to get you and some people aren't. And that's okay. That is okay. Because there's going to be more people who will actually get you in your energy and your light than those that won't. Stop worrying about the ones that aren't ready or aren't there yet or may never be there. They're certainly not listening to my shows because my shows are also about your accountability of stop being the victim, empower yourself, enrich yourself. The abundance is waiting for you when you open up your heart and you allow your soul to speak to you and your spirit can fly and your mind knows what it needs to know when it needs to know it. Get out of your own way.
Yes.
Can you
Wonderful
quickly tell
words.
us about your automatic writing on your drawing there? Because we've got a
Oh,
drawing
sure.
pad in front of us. We've got to know what's in there.
Sure. Um, I do want to say I don't recommend that people dabble
Mm-hmm.
because opening to automatic writing
Mm-hmm.
can be like using a Ouija board.
Right.
And, so anything you do needs to be done with consciousness, with prayer, with psychic protection.
White light.
And that's, a story for another day, because
Mm-hmm.
I did learn that a little bit the hard way. But here's what one of these drawings looks like,
Oh, I love the
all done in
colors.
colored.
Oh, those are my colors. I
Oh,
love
I
them.
bet. Yeah, I
Oh,
bet
yeah.
they're high vibration. And
Yes.
these are all one line. And I
Ah,
and I discovered that I could not only do the automatic writing, which was communicating with spirit and getting
yeah.
messages, but I didn't know what to do. I was teaching at a residential school for troubled teens.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one that hasn't yet been colored, but
Right.
I'll demonstrate. Um, and I didn't know how to keep them amused. So, I've started coloring this one. So and I use uh Prismacolors. I love coloring. And here's another one that's more,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't do these lines freehand because they
Right.
all match up and
Yeah.
they're perfect. So I started doing the automatic drawing because these kids were so they couldn't sit still. So I
Right.
promised them at the end of the day, if they would sit still and do their work, I would read angel cards. So we decided to create a deck, and we came up with all of the terms, because they were taking a certain kind of therapy, and we came up with all these terms. And then I said, well, what am I going to do for the artwork? So I said, you know what, I'm going to try automatic drawing. And then I started to develop it. So you may not be able to see it, but I'll show you.
For those that
First,
are listening, come back to the YouTube, to this show. All you have to put is says Deborah Herman in there, and it will be, you'll see it. You'll find it under Ignite Your Heart Soul playlist, and you'll find it there, and just come and look.
awesome. So I just lay, this is like, okay, I'm not really holding it very, very strongly. And I lay the tip down.
For those that are listening, she's drawing right now.
This is a very, wait, let me see if there's more. A little hard when I'm holding it up like this.
Right.
The pen gets a little caught.
I kind of used to do this actually back in art school. I've just let my hand draw, and then I would shade it. Right.
So
Right. So
it's all
circles
one
and
line. It's enclosed like a mandala, and the pen just, but as you color it, some
it looks like a
shapes.
vase that has been laid down. It's gone through the motion of laying down on its side.
Yeah, and sometimes I sometimes animals. One time I use this to tune in to do an intuitive reading for someone, and I like this one.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a picture right up here that I look at all the time that is actually beautiful flowers and leaves, and those kind of colors are in there. And if I need to be energized, I just look in at it, and the picture is just so vibrant that it just
And
feeds you.
and I think you can see I have
Yeah.
some samples, behind me
Mhm.
of smaller ones. But sometimes I use it to tune in to someone, and a friend of mine was in the hospital, and they didn't know what was wrong with her,
Mhm.
but the drawing looked like a colon.
Ah,
And it was. She was having a blockage.
right, right.
And so sometimes the energy, in all honesty, I learn every day what some of these things are and what
Yes.
they mean, and what effect they have. I didn't know that I could do healing
Hmm.
until I did. And it's
Exactly.
not all the time. I
No,
mean, I have to ask, what can I do for this animal? Because I do animal communication.
right. Yes, because
And
we didn't even get to that. But that's, I mean, animals are speaking to us all the time. It's just, are we tuned in? You
well,
know?
when it's kind of like a radio frequency,
Hmm.
and for
Turn
some
the knob.
reason, yeah, for some reason, my horse, who's now passed on, my first horse, tuned my frequency.
Hmm.
I mean, I always had some telepathy with animals, clairvoyantly. Like I would have like a early morning dream with my cat, and opening the cabinet to get the food, and I opened my eyes and the cat's there looking
Yeah.
at me, sending me
Sending you
pictures.
messages. Yes, it's food time.
But I'm sure we could really spend some time. I don't know how we are with time, but
We're doing
Um,
fine. I'll tell you a quick story though that I have told before, but it really does show the intuition of animals. I had been given, this is in South Africa when I lived there, and along the coast there was a beautiful winding road, but literally sheer drop down to the waters and rock all the way. And this drug eventually was taken off the market because it killed people, but it makes you feel high. And I'm
what
driving in
was
my,
it?
I can't remember the name. I'm going back over 40 years, so probably 50 years, so too long ago. But I'm driving along in an open sports car, and I just thought I could fly, right? I'm driving too fast, and I had a border collie, and the border collie touched me, and I touched her back, and then she barked at me, and I barked at her back. And then I was coming up in a corner that was a very steep corner. A lot of people stopped there to look over because it's quite beautiful. But a lot of people committed suicide driving off there. Why they never put a barrier there, I don't know. I had no intention of committing suicide. I just thought I could fly. And she, on the third rank, lifted up her body and threw it right on top of me. And I was driving a stick, so I actually came to a stop, and I am less than a foot from the cliff edge. And she knew, right? As I said, no intention of me going over the cliff in my own logics. It's just that this is what the drug did. And she just knew the danger was there. And had it not been for her, both of us would have been over that cliff.
I'm very glad that you didn't go over the cliff.
Thank you. I am too.
Oh my goodness. But the animals, I'm my greatest clarity for communication is with horses.
Mhm.
I hear them unless they don't want to talk, which happened
Right.
once. And I was brought to a barn with really highfalutin horses. These are
Mhm.
carriage horses. And this particular family is descended from a major, one of the first major families of New York. And,
Mhm.
and they have this fancy, although they're very down to earth, they have fancy schmancy horses. I met them because they had driven their horses through my little town. I lived where Norman Rockwell did his painting.
All
You know,
right, right.
Norman,
Yeah.
yeah, so I live in that little town. Not a tickle in my throat.
Hmm.
So um, I stopped. I
The frog in the
stopped
front.
them. I stopped the horses and I said, "This horse has a bellyache." And it turned out they couldn't figure out what was wrong with the horse. They'd had the vet out.
Hmm.
And I said, "You're going to think I'm crazy, but this horse has a bellyache." Turned out it had an ulcer.
Oh, really?
And so
Highly
from that
stressed.
point, because I was like, oh, do I tell them? Do I not tell them? But it's like my job, if the animal is going to go
Yes.
all the way
Will
and
you be
pull
my
me over,
translator, please? Yeah.
I have a bellyache. They don't
Yeah.
understand. And I keep telling them.
Yeah.
And so they brought me over. I speak at their club, once a year, but they brought me over and I went to each horse. And if you do this and you don't think you're crazy, sometimes you're crazy. Okay.
Well, I think it's prerequisite to be a little crazy to survive in this world anyway.
Well, absolutely. But if you don't question
Right,
when you're starting out and you're hearing your horse
right.
talk, and so you get nervous too if
Mm.
somebody's like expecting you to give them messages. And so I went around to each horse and I got messages and they validated, yeah, that's right, that's what's happening. And then I get to this one horse, nothing, like nothing. And I'm thinking, oh, I've lost my touch.
Mhm.
And finally I said, I'm not getting anything from this guy. And the the owner said, well, he's really dumb. There's nothing going on in his head. It was just funny. But it turned out I was able to finally tune into him and figure out, he was actually very shy. And
Mm.
but it's amazing to be able to understand things from their perspective. And
Yes,
my first horse taught me a lot about um, why horses are even here and what we are to learn from them. And especially the idea of being herd like
yes.
because horses have each other's back.
I'm
even
the
though
year
there's
of
a
the horse.
hierarchy.
Yep,
Pardon?
I'm the year of the horse in the Chinese zodiac. And
Well, you
and I'm that free spirit, please. I love going back to the stable, I'm sitting on, lying on the hay. Yep, but just let me run. Let me have that free spirit. Please don't try and harness me or contain me, right? You can come along for the ride if you can hold on.
well, I've never had horses that could really be ridden.
Hmm.
They're just like big dogs for me. And it's probably better because I don't need to be Miss Cowgirl. My first horse went from 0 to 80, but
Uh-huh.
he was so funny and so wonderful. His name was Tatanka, and he really taught me the animal communication and how
Hmm.
to understand. Um, and he uh, he would connect with me in dreams,
Yes.
and very, very vivid dreams that so it opened me up. But I find that cats are as you would expect. And when I've had some really funny experiences with cats and my own cat. I have two cats, but they're really, one of them is just a brat, and she's always sneaking out of the house, and we have to negotiate with her. And but cats, when I if they're not if it's not an animal that I know personally, usually what they'll do is they'll say you are they'll say I don't like you.
Right.
That's their first. And then it's like, you are not like me. They
Hmm.
don't like when they feel, wow, you're tuning into me. This
Right,
is
exactly.
weird.
Intrusion. Yeah.
Yes. And then they'll warm up, and I had one cat. It was so funny. This woman brought her cat when I used to actually do sessions at a venue. She brought her cat and said, "This cat, she's ignoring me. She won't cuddle and all this." And I tuned into the cat, and the cat. I asked her. I said, "Did did you used to give her salmon and now you don't?" And she said, "Well, yes, she was getting fat." And first of all, it cracks me up that this person is talking to me and not realizing that I'm talking to a cat.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, every day you just, let's talk to the cat. So I always find that amusing. And then I said, well, you don't have to listen to your cat, but she's purposely on strike because she wants the salmon.
Yes.
They're so funny.
I
And
know.
dogs will typically complain.
Hmm.
They find someone who can hear them, and it's like they have a whole list of complaints. I want this, I want that. But they also are really compassionate
Oh, hugely.
about their owners. And I had one situation where the dog revealed something that the rest of the family was unaware of, that the teenage boy was in a very dark place,
Mm,
and that the dog was concerned about his well-being,
right.
that he might try to hurt himself. And so, I think I am so grateful that when called upon, that I'm able to understand them.
And
Um,
this is, we're all, giving gifts, and some people have maybe only one direct channel of a gift, if that's what they do. Some people are given a few. And it is, again, no comparison. There is no competition. It's just a question of, is whatever you are given, that is the gift you were given. That was the purpose that you were given here. And this is what you're here to do. And anybody else's judgment or opinion, they may keep to themselves, because you don't need to validate or justify. You understand what you're doing. Those that you're doing it with understand what you're doing, and that's all that matters.
it's been you're either picking up on it, or, because of course we're intuitive with each
Yeah.
other. But because I have had a lot of different frequencies, the way my
Hmm.
brain is. And, like maybe somebody is an animal communicator, that's what they do.
Right.
And then they're not necessarily working with people, or they aren't a medium, because I have mediumship when when it's supposed to.
Right.
Where all of a sudden I'm minding my own business and someone is like in the room and they want to talk to that person. And I don't, I, I have not told people about these gifts because of the backlash. And
I think
now,
you just got to get to that stage where
but now
who
what
cares
am I
about
going
the
to do? I
backlash?
can't deny them.
No, well, no. The thing is, we have to honor the gift. And if people have a problem with that gift, it is their problem. And if they mention it and saying, I'm sorry that this makes you uncomfortable, but this is my commitment to my gift. And, and you either can accept it or not. It doesn't bother me. But
I
it
have
is,
never found, if it really comes through strongly and I take the chance to
mhm,
tell someone that I am getting a message, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I have the obligation to share it with you. Do you want to know? I have never had a bad result. But
mhm.
this little human of
Of
me,
course, yes. And also the
is like,
lawyer in you, the
yes,
practical analytical side of you, right?
yeah,
Which is there, which is as you said, is great teaching for your application of what you're doing, but everything you're doing is doing in spirit, using the skills of the application, right? And it's just remember where that intellect or analytical belongs, right? And it doesn't belong in your gift world. And it's people. I used to bend into a damn pretzel to try and be what everybody else wanted me to be, and the whole thing is I'm a very spiritual being. My daughter said to me the other day, "Will you wait until her son is older before I tell him of my spirituality?" Because apparently, when I told her when she was young, and she's incredibly intuitive herself, but doesn't see it that way, right? And it's like it scared me. But the things that she went through as a child intuitively, past lives and things like this that she accepted, but still kind of running a bit scared of it. My son is incredibly intuitive and he's on that path of discovery right now. My other daughter's just a butterfly. Wherever she goes, she lights up people's lives, and she is like that. But I don't need to, I don't need to tell the stories to my grandson. We're already in tune. And I will be careful as he grows older, obviously, to the stories, but I also know that this is a child that was born of the connection of Earth and the universe. It's already in him. But
how old?
he's 20 months.
I have a 3-year-old grandson,
Hmm.
and I can already see
Yeah.
these children coming in now.
They're indigo
Like people,
kids. Hmm.
they're amazing.
Yeah.
People say, I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't know if I want to have a child now with the world." And I say, these children are really the
The
future. It's
answer.
not a cliche.
They are the answer we need as long as
They
we don't
are.
screw them up.
They are
Mm.
so aware and so,
Gifted and
oh
talented
my
and
goodness. And I mean,
yeah.
he's like, he just cracks me up. I just spent a month with him when my son was traveling, and it just amazed me. I hope and pray that young people now understand that if they are blessed to bring a child,
Mm.
that it's meant, and that,
Yes.
and they're we have to guide them and
And allow
protect
them,
them.
please don't impose upon them
Exactly.
your limited beliefs. Please
Exactly.
learn from them. Please learn from
Exactly.
them. They have so much to teach us. We are
And
their
observe them.
custodians and their guiders. And please don't start putting them in a little box and say you've got to go down this linear path. And this is only what you've got to fit into this notch or that notch. No, just let them be that spiritual essence that they are, and teach them the skills of how to use that essence in their light.
Well, I will tell you though, my children always were accepting, and although they joke about some of the weird things that they observed when I was when they were children and I had my students over and we had these, vegan potlucks and all this different stuff. And they didn't quite understand. But my youngest daughter laughs because she was so aware of my intuition and my clairvoyance, because if she tried to get away with anything,
Yeah.
like she stayed at some friends and they all had a party and there weren't parents there, and they
Uh-huh.
weren't, they were young, they weren't really getting into too much trouble. But when she came home the next day, I asked her about it and described it exactly as it was, that there weren't any parents and who was there. And I don't know how I knew, but I did. And she never got over that. She said, "That's it. I can't do anything. My mother's going to know." She wanted to get a little tattoo. She was old enough, but she knew I wasn't really in favor of it. She called me from she's a grown woman, called me from the tattoo place because she knew that I would know something was up. And
Right.
Mom, is it okay?
The thing is, this is we don't know where that attunement is going, right? And, I've been in business meetings with people and they've got this huge big facade on, investors and this and that, because I went down a road of backing a quantum electric motor, and I met all of these big, huge business people, and it was all the huff puff, etc. And I had one guy look at me one time in the middle of his speech, and everyone, "You see me, don't you?" And
It's
it's like,
so,
and I go,
yeah, it's
yes, I
disarming
do.
for
And
people.
and it's like
I see
this,
right through
I
you,
see right,
sucker.
I see that little boy trying to impress inside there, the insecure little boy. And this is all a facade that you've put on to impress other people, and you're not being who you're meant to be. And they know I see them, right? But
Good
also people that
segue.
are open to it, though. What do you see? How do you see my potential? How do I get there? Because sometimes when you share what you see of someone, I've never seen that in myself. Or I didn't know that was possible for me. And then you're actually kind of opening up that door for them to go and explore it. It all depends on where they're at, ready to receive it and want to take the journey, or scared of it.
But this is a good segue back to spiritual writing,
Hmm.
because I get a sense if somebody is being the little boy trying to impress.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
that's when I have to tell them, I'd want to tell them, cut the crap,
Yeah.
but I use maybe a little bit more diplomacy.
As they
But
said, the mother comes out of me.
yeah, but it really, or as my mother, may she rest in peace, she used to say, "Get over yourself."
Exactly. Yeah.
She was from Brooklyn. Um, so it, it's the same thing with your spiritual writing. Don't try to be something you're not.
People
And if
see
you
that. They see the
and
fakeness. They're
and if you need to be more evolved before it's your time to, then work on that,
right.
and work on your personal development and evolving in your message and learning the craft of writing. But that's why patience is so important, because
Mm.
divine timing and our timing are very, very different, and we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to
I mean,
understand that.
it's nearly 5 years ago that I was given a complete vision of where next to take self-discovery media. And I have another site called the orchardofwisdom.org. And it is mentorship, it is sponsorship, it's books. We've already done one book, and we're going into more podcast books. And it is all about that involvement. The Found Action Program, it gave me a very clear picture. And when it does that, I make graphics of those pictures. That is the template of what it is meant to be. And it's like, I keep telling you, this year, this year, I have
Exactly.
I
It's
have to
like
wait
we
until
get
the synchronicity.
downloads
Yeah, and it's
of
not
things that are going to
way ahead of
happen
time.
10 years
I
later,
know. Yeah.
and
It's hello up, I'm getting
that's,
older here. Can you hurry up while I still have energy,
I know.
please?
It's like, wait, how old do I have to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want it on my 70th, please. 68, fine. Right. So it's there. I know it has to be. But how it will come about, what I've done is that I've created the orchestra and I'm waiting for the players. Right? This is the piece of music I want to play. And I'm looking for those particular kind of people to come and play it because that is the harmony that I'm looking for. The invitation is out there. I already know the music. I know, what it can do and whom it can serve, how it's going to inspire. But if you don't have the right people, you can't push it, you can't demand it, you can't dictate it. You have to allow. And it will
I,
come when the time is ready to be synchronized.
I told you about integrative law.
Hmm.
I met Kim, my co-mentor person, who is one of the central figures in this movement, 20 years ago when
Hmm.
I first wrote spiritual writing.
Uh-huh.
She lived in Portland, Oregon for a minute, and I did a book signing and event in Portland, Oregon for that original book. And we met and just peripherally kept in touch.
Hmm.
This was the first version of the book 20 years ago.
Mm.
Okay. And now this is, the new
Yeah,
one.
I mean, my book's blue too. We're into the same colors, and those
Oh,
colors all
I
have
love it.
energies. Yeah, they're all
And
completely
that's
into the
why
same colors.
that's why I got this too, this shirt and my lapis. Um, yeah, this was just it spoke to me. And of course I have to brag. It already won first place for through Book Fest.
Great,
So it's already won one award. But that's how we met. And
right?
now, 20 years later, this is all coming to fruition. And I always wondered, why the heck did I go through law school and get that
Uh,
degree, work so hard? And now I'm not practicing law again. I did practice for a while, but I am helping facilitate through my publishing infrastructure and my writing and organization a way to possibly change the future
and
for
that will be a
law.
show in 2023, folks. So they're both coming on in
Definitely,
2023.
you'll love
We're going to be
her.
talking about that because that is something that is desperately needed. Like in business, like in in business, who wants to do work with you and unless they like you? We've got to that stage now. We don't want the big flash and the big advertising. We want the authenticity. We want to know,
Yes.
yeah, are you a person I can invite for dinner? All right. And if you are, then I can trust you with my business. We are our business. We are our relationships. We are everything about us is who we are. And whether we wear different hats for different businesses or different relationships, underneath it, we need to be who we are. All we're doing
Yes.
is just
Integrity.
playing our music on a different tune for each channel, but the core of the instrument is always truly authentic.
Well, I am thrilled, and I feel like you're my peeps.
All those are listening, if you've caught up the wave with us here today, and there's a lot that you've been shown and a lot that you've been taught here today and shared with here today. If there's only one thing that you resonate with, hallelujah, right? This is kind of a show that you go back and listen to again at another time, and you will get something else out of it. And there'll be something else that will spark for you, just like a book. And I say this all the time. When you put that book down and you keep revisiting it and it takes you down another journey, it inspires you on something else, or it stays with you, then you know that you've got a book that really is something that you need to that has spoken to your journey. It has spoken to who you are. It's the same with a podcast. If we've spoken to your heart and soul, if we've ignited your spirit here today in any positive direction, hallelujah. Have a podcast party, everybody listen to the same podcast, and then share what you each got from it. And then you'll have even a whole picture on it. And that's what it's all about. Thank you so much for sharing here today. Now, how do people get hold of the book? How do people get hold of you on your site? What if people are wanting to write? Give me the whole process there. And of course, you are coming back again in January.
Why, thank you. SoulOdysseyBooks.com is a website that has information about me and the book. The book, Spiritual Writing from Inspiration to Publication, is now officially published. So it should be available on any online retailer or in any box store. I also have a website that is micro publishing media, and
Mhm.
that is my publishing website. So that's Soul Odyssey Books, micro publishing media, and then the spiritual writing from inspiration to publication.
And of course, you're
So,
on Instagram, you're on Facebook under your name,
yes,
or author Deborah, or Deb Herman, or Deborah Levine Herman, and you're on Facebook. Get your spiritual book published,
yes,
and Twitter, spiritual agent, LinkedIn, what's this,
is my name,
book
Deborah.
publishing, right?
Yeah,
So you're on all of these, so you can reach out
I'm
and
around. You can find
right,
me.
exactly,
or
and
just or just think, and I'll get your thought. No, I'm
right.
kidding.
It all depends if they're on the same wavelength, right? When you know, the thing about digital, it takes everybody to a set one, but the whole thing about turning the knob, it's like hot walks. You know, the platform, 9.5 or 9 3/4, right? The one in
Right.
between. Don't forget the in between,
Exactly.
folks.
Exactly. We'll meet you there.
We'll meet you
So,
there. And please don't be afraid of your spirituality. If you know you've got a gift tapping you on the shoulder, don't worry about other people's opinions. Don't worry about if other people understand or not. You could change the color of your hair and they can argue about that. All right. You know, it's just you can't explain it to everyone, but please explore it because this is your awakening. This is going to take you into that beautiful, harmonious orchestra that you are going to feel so resonant in. And so please, please, please take the journey. Come on in. The waters are wonderful
yes, and calm.
and calm and just so enlightening and so creative and so inviting and so illuminating. It's just really the best place to be, right?
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Deborah, and happy Hanukkah to you, which is
Thank you.
coming up.
And yes, and happy holidays, and celebrate everything.
Right. And you know, the whole thing about the whole festive season, whatever faith you are doing, or whether you just celebrate Christmas for the joy of it, please look at it with grace and with gratitude and with companionship and collaboration, because it is meant to be a time of joy and love. And don't forget the people that are lonely out there, folks, reach out to them in some form or other, because we don't want people at this joyous time to feel alone. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.